Hello and welcome to Odds on Premier League Match Day 28. We keep up with the fight for the title. 5 points between Arsenal and Man City, both won, and also very interesting, the fight for the Champions League. Tom, Aston Villa, Man United, Chelsea and Liverpool fighting against each other, and we have a great Sunday with Arsenal-Chelsea. Not bad at all.
Yeah, way much more going on down the home straight of the season than I think we were expecting. Everything's in play, as you say, from the title to Champions League to relegation and everything in between. Beyond Fulham, everyone's got something to play for.
Yeah, and of course the fight to avoid relegation with West Ham, with Nottingham Forest and Tottenham. Why not? Yeah. They are also there. Well, guys, come with us, stay with us. We are going to talk about English football. Tom Rennie is going to tell you everything you need to know ahead of the weekend. So now let's go on with the show. First game on Friday, we have Wolves Aston Villa. Let's see if the season is going to be too long for Aston Villa. They drop points. They drew with Leeds. There is some pressure with the big guns coming from behind, 6 points away now from Chelsea, from Liverpool. So if you are traveling, of course, to Wolverhampton, Tom, you expect them to win. And look at the odds. They are actually quite good, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, the reason they're quite good is because Wolves have improved recently, right? Like, they were despicable for the opening 10 weeks of the season under Vitor Pereira. There was some improvement from that point, but look, I think Rob Edwards has come in, and are they going to stay in the Premier League? Of course, obviously not. That's been the case for quite some time. But they do look better organised. They do look like they're playing for something. They do have a couple of players in Mane, and I know he got sent off last week, but 𝐿𝐿𝐴 and one or two others who you think, yeah, okay, they're giving it a good go. The two 𝗀𝗵𝗄𝐻 in midfield will get a move. The two 𝗀uenos will get a move. And they're playing for a semblance of pride now. And I think that they gave a good account of themselves against Arsenal in that draw, a good account of themselves in the draw against Forest, certainly a respectable performance in that late loss against Crystal Palace. Suddenly, Wolves have become hard to beat. And this season has not necessarily been the season of winning and winners. It's been the season of being hard to beat. Wolves have finally joined that party way too late, but it does make it more tough for Aston Villa than maybe it would have been a few weeks ago. And their injury list is significant, not necessarily in number, though 5 or 6 out is quite a lot. To lose Boubacar Kamara, I think, has been catastrophic. To add Youri Tielemans on top of that has really upset the balance of this team. It's a very thin squad. They did not invest particularly well in January for financial pressure reasons. Leon Bailey coming back in and playing Premier League football again for Aston Villa, having been bombed out of the club, is weird. But that's where they find themselves. Evan Gassan, who they signed in the summer, offered nothing and has now been loaned out to Crystal Palace. That shows you how poor last summer was, which again shows you how incredible it is that Villa were ever in a title discussion and are in a discussion right now and are one of the favourites to qualify for the Champions League. So I think that commendable season, but it's been really bumpy recently for the reasons we've discussed. They didn't reinvest enough in January, and people are looking tired. The midfield balance is off. Watkins not scoring. Buendia and Bailey trying to do too much. Rodgers stopped scoring screamers. So every game has become really, really tight. But they are still shading tight games. Brighton and Hove Albion in recent times, for example, and the draw against Leeds in the game where they maybe could have lost that. The way it was going was commendable too. So it's not going to be the thumping that it would have been at the earlier stages of the season. So, unfortunately, we've not had many handicap bets this season. We've not had many Asian handicaps, and I don't think this is one here either. Take the Villa win at 1.95 because they're in the top 4 and Wolves are bottom, so you obviously got to do that. But I think both teams are going to score in this game. For Aston Villa, both teams to score in 3 of the last 5 of the other 2. They scored 1 and conceded 1, so low-scoring goals. In terms of Wolverhampton Wanderers, a couple of goals against Arsenal, scored against Chelsea. They have goals in them, but of course they have the worst defence in the league. So Villa win both teams to score, 3.75. And it just screams, absolutely screams 2-1. Screams it. It's 8.5. I don't always say go correct score. I try and hedge my bets a bit, but it's going to finish 2-1 to Aston Villa.
Okay, 𝗀𝐿𝐴𝐵𝗿𝗀 also says this result. Connats, I can see an under here, Jeremy. Villa to win, both teams to score. This is the Friday game. For Saturday, we have Bournemouth, Sunderland. Also, I would say these two teams, Tom, have nothing to play for until the end of the season. A slight chance to play in Europe, but I don't think this is happening. Bournemouth grab a draw with West Ham. They are undefeated in the last 7 Premier League games, and Sunderland back-to-back defeats at home. 3 consecutive defeats in the Premier League. Therefore, Bournemouth favorite for this one, 1.8.
There is a scenario, I've not got it in front of me now, where the Bournemouth could be in European football if they finish 8th. And it's to do with, who wins the FA Cup and who wins the Carabao Cup and blah, 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 who then finishes in the Champions League positions. But 8th could be Europe. 8th could be Conference League. So, there's a possibility for Bournemouth, where they currently sit, to be in European football next season. But look, I take your point that the upper echelons of top 6, top 7 are probably going to be unlikely for Bournemouth because of their mid-season dip. Didn't think they were great last week against West Ham. I think West Ham should have won that game quite comfortably in the end, beyond a breakaway strike that hit the bar from Rayan, offered very little going forward. Defensively, pretty solid, it's got to be said. Petrovic had a good game, I thought. And good to see Tyler Adams come back to fitness as well. I think that without him in midfield, it is no surprise to me that they had a little blip in form, because the Adams-Scott partnership, which we don't see enough because of the continual injuries to both, one of the best, I think, in the league. So, look, really solid Bournemouth last week, despite the fact they weren't particularly impressive. Home form across the season has been middling. I think it's 6 victories and 5 draws, but tough to beat at home. So I don't think I'll bet many Bournemouth to lose at homes this season. I'm not going to go for one here. Haven't lost in 6. Best run they've had this season. Very much in every game. Not scoring many goals, but not conceding many goals either. Hill and Senesi have been fantastic at centre-half in recent weeks. For Sunderland, the issue is Granit Xhaka has not been playing. And Granit Xhaka has been one of the best players in the Premier League this season, if not the best player in the Premier League this season. I think we've seen what the future might well be like without Granit Xhaka next year. He is getting older, so I'm expecting him to stay, but you don't know what he's going to be able to do. And you're looking around this team and you think, look, there's some really hard-working players in this team, and they're obviously very well drilled, but they're doing that bit now that, as the cliche goes, Stoke used to do under Tony Pulis. The goal was to get 40 points. And Sunderland have achieved it, right? They've achieved safety. And I'm not 40 points yet, but what I mean is the marker to stay in the Premier League is 36, currently they're on. And now it's a bit like, what do we do now? What's next? And now what? And now what? It's just a middling run of nonsense form, really. Like, they got themselves up for Liverpool and they lost the game, but got themselves up for Arsenal, lost the game. Weren't up for Fulham at all last week. Didn't see it. Weren't even interested in playing that game. A lot of guys here thinking about their futures. A lot of guys here thinking about whether they want to stay at Sunderland or whether they'll bounce this season into a good move. And you can kind of see that in the confused tactics, the confused performances. And they're on the wind down now, Sunderland. And for that, I think I'm going to bet on them to lose for the next 10 weeks. Take the Bournemouth win at 1.85 for the form reasons. Struggling to see a Sunderland goal at the moment. It's just 1 goal in their last 3 games in all competitions. In fact, 5, you include Arsenal, and 4 because the 5th game was the 3 against Burnley. So 4 games, 1 goal, not great. So Bournemouth win to 0 is 3.25. It will be a reasonably tight game, I think. Rayan has impressed, hit the bar in the game against West Ham, the Semenyo replacement. Him anytime goal scorer, 2.75. I do think it'll be 1-0 or 2-0. If you bung 3-0 into that as well, it comes in at 3.75. But look at the under here. First reasonable bet is Bournemouth and under 3.5. I might even go 2.5, but 3.5 brings you at 2.63.
Okay, Mikael here. This will be a draw. 1-1, goalless draw. Could be also an option. Why not? 𝗀𝐿𝐴𝐵𝗿𝗀, Bournemouth to win and under 3.5 goals. Sunderland have turned off. Indeed, they can go on holidays and they can be happy enjoying the beach now in March. Next one is Burnley. Brentford here, also not much on stake because I don't think Brentford will play in Europe, but still, of course, they have a chance, a better chance even than Burnley. Lost to Brighton in the last game, and well, Burnley caught a surprising draw at Stamford Bridge, even if we were saying, Tom, be careful with this game, but at the end they ended up getting a point. Of course, here, again, Brentford favorites since Burnley are untouchable.
Yeah, I was annoyed last week. I mean, it was a great story that Burnley got that draw and very nearly won, but like it was all going swimmingly and smoothly until Fofana got himself sent off. But Chelsea keeps self-destructing. I don't know why I bet on it. I've got to stop doing it. I will from this point forward, maybe, possibly. We'll see what comes up. Look, Burnley are going down. We haven't got to go through this, every single week, but I do think that Scott Parker is a manager who can coach a team. They're going to go down losing games narrowly time and time again, and got a good draw last week. I think they'll get a respectable points tally of 25 to 28. That's not going to be enough. One or two players have impressed in recent weeks. I think Anthony and Edwards behind the striker, likely Fleming, have looked good. They can score goals. The trouble is it's usually one of the three that happen in the game as opposed to the majority of goals. They're losing a lot of games by the odd goal in three. As they even managed against Mansfield Town in the FA Cup a couple of weeks ago. So look, well-organised team, respectable finish, but they are going to be relegated. The story here is whether Brentford have got it in them to qualify for Europe. You mentioned it earlier on. You don't think so. But look, again, it depends on Conference League, and Palace win that, and maybe an English team wins the Europa, and who wins the Champions League, and there's 5 teams in it already with a coefficient. Who wins the FA Cup? There's so many variables. It could go to 8th. So as things stand, if the season finished today, Brentford and Bournemouth would be in European competition in that scenario. So lots to play for Brentford on that score. They've massively overperformed this season. They really, really have. But because of that, they can revert to type in games like Brighton or Nottingham Forest in recent times. First goal in Brentford games is often so crucial. If they get it, good luck scoring against them, as we've seen in several matches this season, Aston Villa and one or two others in recent weeks. But if they concede the first goal, and if 𝐿𝐵𝗿𝗀𝗀𝘀 is not having a good day, teams just back off. And if you play low block against Brentford, they're kind of finished. So first goal, absolutely pivotal in Brentford games. If they get it here, I think they'll go on to win it. Look, very, very even match. A lot of their scores this season are pretty even. Screams draw at 4, mainly because of the deficiencies of both. I wouldn't be surprised to see another Chelsea-Burnley style late comeback for Burnley, and they maybe grab something. Of the two teams, take Brentford to win at 1.82. I think they have more to play for, have a better team, and are more threatening. And Burnley with now going to take some risks. There might be that space in behind for 𝐿𝐵𝗿𝗀𝗀𝘀, 17 Premier League goals for him this season. Take 𝐿𝐵𝗿𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, by the way, anytime goal scorer at 2. I know he's a bit hit and miss, but they do get a lot of penalties, and he takes them. It does feel like both teams to score. So take that, and your preferred winner. Screams 1-1, frankly.
Indeed, Brentford to win and both teams to score. 𝐿𝐵𝗿𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, double chance for Brentford. Well, that doesn't pay that much. He's adding also both teams to score, but indeed the 1-1 could be a really good option. Our smart bet for this game is 1x 2.10. It pays more, the 1x, the double chance for Burnley, than Brentford to win. So interesting also to take a look at this market. Next game, Tom, better one, this one. Liverpool-West Ham. West Ham is still in the bottom 3 despite the good performances, despite or because missing so many chances with Bournemouth, with Man United. They are unable to avoid the bottom 3 at the moment, and now it's going to be tough to get something from Anfield, or perhaps not. Perhaps the team can compete, because we are seeing a poor version of Liverpool despite the win against Nottingham Forest. They were so lucky. They didn't play well that game. They beat Sunderland. They beat Forest, both games without any style. But they are in the fight for the Champions League. Any options for West Ham to catch a draw or a positive result at Anfield?
I mean, yeah, maybe. I think 7.6 is quite interesting for West Ham, who are, I think, at this particular moment across the last 5 or 6 games, probably one of the best teams in the league. Something's clicked with West Ham, and we'll get to them in a second. I think that, like, Liverpool have not been great, and I think you're right on that. The win against Forest was a robbery last week. I mean, let's be frank about it. Forest should have been up comfortably in the first half. Liverpool were better in the second period, but the goal that stood, I still have my doubts about it. The goal that was then disallowed, I think, was the right call. Things just kind of swung in their favour. No one played particularly well, I think, last week. 𝗂𝐿𝐴 struggling. Mo Salah is struggling. Gakpo's offering very little. McAllister, despite scoring the winner, had a pretty tough game. And it's weird as well. The eyeball test is so funny because watching Liverpool right now, who's impressed? Like, no one's impressed. And yet it's 3 wins in a row without conceding. And the only loss in the last 5 was the Man City game where they were the better team for 70 minutes before City had that late kind of smash and grab victory. So it's weird to assess them because on the eyeball test, they are not playing well. But on paper, they're winning games and not conceding goals. So they obviously go into this game big favourites, though it's tough for me to pick out anyone who's playing particularly well. Home form has not been amazing this season too for Liverpool. Not bad by any stretch, but 3 times they've been beaten this season, 3 draws this season. Forest have gone there to win. That does give West Ham a little bit of hope, as well as their recent form. And look, you know, West Ham are in this relegation battle, and they were out of it maybe 8 weeks ago, whenever the Nottingham Forest game was, when they're 7 points adrift and looked totally defeated. The form has been really good. Beyond the Chelsea game, they've been unbeaten in this run. The Chelsea game should never have lost it. And that was down to, you know, the way football goes sometimes. But the performance itself was very good. The loss of Pablo is significant. I think he did bring something to the team, sitting in behind Tasty Castellanos, but maybe he wouldn't have played in this game. And they would have gone with a Magassa or Potts. Potts suspended for this one, so Magassa probably going to play a fit. But Desarcy has come in and West Ham have looked more solid. They've now kept 3 clean sheets in 4 games, having before that kept 1 clean sheet all season. So he's obviously made a very big difference. You can see that on eyeball test as well as the stats. I think that, look, this squad, this team, the way you look at it right now, shouldn't be in a relegation battle. They're in a relegation battle because Graham Potter, I think, has got some sort of brain damage and shouldn't be a Premier League manager. And it took them too long to wake up to what Nuno wanted from this team. Now we're seeing it. I'd still favour them to go down from what's there because of where they're coming back from. But look, they've got every chance of getting something from this game. I think a win seems a bit of a push. It would probably be a Tottenham-style last-minute corner if they were to win it. The bench is not particularly strong, but they're giving themselves a chance, West Ham, which they didn't have a few weeks ago. Obviously, if you're looking to throw this into a parlay, what have you, Liverpool win at 1.43. I think you take that. In terms of how it's going to be won, it's going to be tight, I think. And it shows in recent wins for Liverpool, a couple of 1-0s, and wins for West Ham, 1-0s and 2-0s. So Liverpool win by exactly 1 goal is 4. I do think 2-1 is quite likely. Either way, take Liverpool at both teams to score, and Liverpool win is 2.5. And then, look, the West Ham win on its own, I do think might be worth a punt. I'm not saying it's going to happen here, but if you're looking for a long shot bet from what's coming up this weekend, West Ham are one of the best teams right now in the country, and they need to win. Other teams have won games like this. Forest won this actual game, and that, in a roundabout way, is why Forest are above West Ham right now, because they picked up a big win against a big team away from home. West Ham are a long way behind. They've got to do it against someone. Why not this one? And why not with 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐻 scoring as well? Still on a really good scoring run. Anytime scorer for him is 5.
Liverpool, they've been so poor this season. We expected them to wake up at some point. I think now it's pretty clear that the season is going to be wasted for them, and be thankful if they qualify for the Champions League. Let's see also what they do in Europe, where they perform slightly better. Gaming is going for double chance West Ham. This is our smart bet also. Option for this game. There we can see double chance 𝑋2 is 3. It's really high odds. Mikel Aoni thinks Liverpool winning 3-1. Heart says draw. Head says Liverpool. 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐻. Well, let's see if we see some improvement from Liverpool, although it's kind of like Real Madrid. The weeks pass. There is one game here and there, but the season is just so poor with the players they have. Next one is Newcastle Everton. Newcastle in the round of the last 16 in the Champions League, winning both legs to Karabakh. It's surprising to see 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐻 now not playing as a number 9. He's playing like a fantasista in the Serie A. It's a new role for the German player. 4 defeats in the last 5 Premier League games, so really bad in the Premier League. And then we have Everton, which is always a huge question mark. Perhaps it's also not a bad idea here, Tom, going for a surprise. Why not? And Everton catching something from St. James's Park.
That's not what I'm going to say. Feel free to bet on whatever you like, but I've not been impressed by Everton for some weeks, and the reason is they haven't got a goal scorer, they've not got a striker. If they had someone who could score consistently and regularly, they might have had a different season. But I think that Barry, despite a recent run of form, is not good enough. I mean, on the subject of Newcastle, I think that the league form beyond the City game has been really, really good. The Villa win was very, very impressive in the Cup. I think the Tottenham win, despite Tottenham's travails, was impressive. And they've started to manage the midweek weekend thing better than they did at the start of the season. I did think that the loss of Bruno Guimaraes would be really significant. And in the long run, maybe it will be, but they've covered for that well. And that's maybe why the 𝗲𝗲𝗏𝗀 midfield experiment is now happening. By all accounts, and look, I don't watch a great deal of German football, but by all accounts of those that do, he did sort of play in that position, slightly deeper, a bit more creative. Just because he's a giant beanpole doesn't mean he's supposed to be the striker. If he was a foot shorter, we maybe might expect this from Nick 𝗲𝗲𝗏𝗀. But look, I'm not sure how good he is. I'm not sure how good his ball control is. I'm not sure if he's got an eye for a pass from what I've seen. But certainly it does sort of feel like this actually was the vision as opposed to what we've seen so far. Plus, few teams are doing this now with a kind of bigger, more industrial player behind the striker. It's become a bit on vogue in the Premier League and beyond. And Anthony Gordon up front has been tremendous in recent weeks, including the hat-trick against Qarabağ, or the 4 he scored against Qarabağ, and goals elsewhere as well. So that balance does look quite interesting. Plus, they had to make a change because without Bruno Guimaraes, it's a different team. But overall form good, and they will go into this game as big favourites for the reasons that were discussed on their side. And in terms of Everton, every now and then when they need a win, they throw in a really good performance. And that's sort of been true for David Moyes forever. The win against Fulham is the one that stands out across the last 5. Beyond that, no wins in that run. But in the last 2 home games, incredibly poor. Bournemouth and then Manchester United. Not in terms of overall performance, I think, but in just terms of creativity. Like, that is what is lacking in this team. And next summer, if they go again with David Moyes, and I kind of hope and advise they do, that's the only thing that matters this summer. Get a striker. Get someone up front who can lead this line. If they had Anthony Gordon, if they had myriad other players that would be in within their reach, I do think they'd be fantastic. But it's just a thin squad, and he's done really well, David Moyes, frankly, to keep Everton away from relegation all season, never mind European competition. But don't bet on Everton. Go for Newcastle win at 1.81. Again, I keep talking about how bad they are in front of goal, so I don't back them to score. I back Newcastle to win to 0. 3.25. I'm quite surprised by how good those odds are. Newcastle 1-0, 2-0, 3-0. My cover of the spread group bet comes in at 3.75. And I think Anthony Gordon's a man in really fine form right now. He's going to be the danger man. Of course, former Everton player as well. Double your money for Gordon to score anytime.
Newcastle is on form. Well, not in the Premier League. 𝐿𝐭𝐚𝐲 is telling us. And Newcastle played midweek. Everton don't score many. I'm going under 2.5 goals. Well, be mindful also was a friendly game against Qarabağ. Ultra also sees an under for this one. And then we have Leeds. Man City also on Saturday, still fighting for the title, slightly improving in the last weeks, 5 points away with 1 game in hand. So everything is possible. Beat Newcastle, or really was the hero with a brace. We haven't seen Haaland, by the way, lately in the score sheet. And this is a tricky game, Tom. It's not easy to beat Leeds. Drew with Aston Villa, with Chelsea, 10 draws this season. At the moment, they are a team not easy to beat, indeed, and especially when they are playing at home. So, tricky game, this one, for Man City to keep fighting for the title.
Yeah, definitely. Leeds have been excellent in recent weeks since they made the decision to stop trying to win games. It sounds funny, but they just decided what we do here is don't get beat. That's the key thing. To win a game, you've got to take a lot of risk, especially in that last 10, 15 minutes. Leeds decided not to do that. And they've decided to make sure that whatever happens here, we come away with something. And that has led them up the table. That's what time it is in the Premier League this season. Don't get beat. And if you can do that consistently, you'll be nowhere near the relegation battle below, where the bottom 3 have been beaten consistently across the season. That's been your difference maker this season. That's why they're not in a relegation battle, because they've lost 10, whereas Spurs have lost 12, and West Ham and Forest have lost 14. That's the difference. There are games where I'm sure Forest will feel they should have got at least a draw. Last week, for example, being one of them, they didn't. Leeds probably would have done. And that's been a huge difference maker. 𝗵𝗵𝗀𝐻𝐿𝐿 has dried up with goals, but still remains a threat up front. Brendan Aronson been fantastic this season. I think Joe Rodon had a really good game last week against Aston Villa at Villa Park. And, of course, Pascal Struijk, and I think it'll probably be maybe James Justin alongside him with the injuries they've got in the back three. I think they've been fantastic this season. Anton Stark, too, with that free kick. Always look out for him now. 3 direct free kick goals this season. All fantastic. So always maybe worth a little punt on him, anytime goal scorer with his prowess and confidence there. The only thing I'd ever say with Leeds, and I'm going to say it for the rest of the season, is always look at the draw. 4.75 for the draw, considering just how many good draws they have got, including against big teams this season. Always worth a look, which means 0-0 or 1-1, the most common score lines. 6 as a group bet here is always interesting. And so many of their games have finished 1-1, including Villa last week, Birmingham in the Cup, and several others this season. So don't discount that. I would say City are favourites. They are the form team in the country right now. It's obvious for anyone to say that. I think Gay and Diaz look pretty solid against Newcastle last week. And when you consider it was 𝗵𝐿𝐿 and another in recent times, maybe Nathan Ake at centre-half, not good enough for City. So huge improvement made there. Semenyo's made a massive difference. O'Reilly being pushed forward has made a massive difference. He's got a good balance with Ait-Nouri down the left. And your Haaland point is well taken, though he is still the Premier League's top goal scorer this season with 22. But without scoring last week, I actually thought he was the best player on the field against Newcastle because he's leading the line in a more traditional way. He's kind of doing what Dominic Calvert-Lewin does for Leeds, holding the ball up, bringing other people into play, being unselfish, including the cross for O'Reilly, which I think was City's second on the day against Newcastle. Brilliant defensively as well. Just putting in all-rounder performances right now, Erling Haaland, which maybe you have to do if you're struggling in front of goal. Massive difference maker last week, and I think he should be a difference maker here. A low-scoring game, either 1-0 to City or a 1-1 draw. Screams it to me. The City win at 1.65 is nice. City win to 0 is 3. Leeds don't score many goals, and City's defence has looked better. So tight City win, under 2.5 goals in the game.
Okay, most of our audience also are going for City to grab a good result here, except David. David sees a double chance here for Leeds. City is a must win for a title race. Will win. I guess Man City have a strong record versus Leeds, so go Man City to win 2-0 or 3-1. Let's take a look at our smart bet tool. Is going for first half draw for this Man City. Could be an option, actually. First half draw and then a late winner. There you go, 2.5. Or double chance for Leeds. In this case, first team to score, Leeds. So going for the underdog in this case. And for Sunday, we have 4 more games. Brighton, Nottingham Forest. Forest 2 points away from West Ham, as we said, very unlucky not to get a point at least against Liverpool with the new manager still on the bench playing Europa League on Thursday, although they did their homework in Turkey. And Brighton beat Brentford, but they were in a really poor run before that. They were winless in the previous 6. So I guess Nottingham Forest are hopeful to get something from the 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐻 Stadium, Tom.
Yeah, it's a huge game for Forest. It really is, because this is one of the most winnable games they have left, and Brighton are infinitely beatable this season. There's a lot of unrest at Brighton, which was really coming to the surface before the surprise win against Brentford last week. The home performances have been particularly drab. That Crystal Palace game where they lost 1-0, one of the worst games I've seen in the Premier League this season. And I'm not expecting Fabian 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏 to stay as manager, and I think Brighton are in a bit of a reckoning moment for their business model, if you like. The generation that have seen them through for some years, the likes of James Milner and Lewis Dunk, I think they're at the end of their time. Pascal Gross came back from Dortmund as a bit of a club legend, but of course he can't go on forever. It's the summer to do a big sale. Matoma or Gomez or Baleba, but none of them have really been good enough this season to bring in the big bucks that other players like Caicedo and Cucurella have. So an interesting moment for Brighton. They might have a bunch of more unsellable assets, which is not going to help their continual evolution and rebuilding. And on the field, look, it was a really good win last week, and it was a deserved win, a surprise win against Brentford last week. But I would say that the performance itself wasn't totally convincing. I think the midfield balance with 𝗵𝗿𝗲𝗄 continually being withdrawn or not playing, in the absence of Yasin Ayari, I think a midfield of Milner, 𝗵𝗄𝐿 and Gross is pretty weak, frankly. And I think Forest should win that midfield battle with Sangare and Anderson on their side. And offensively too, 𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐜 in good form. Beyond that, no one else. And I'm just struggling at the moment to back Brighton. I really am. I'm not convinced by anything that they've done in recent times. And Forest, the Vitor Pereira hire, I'm still not sure about. I'm not sure we saw anything against Liverpool that we wouldn't have seen under Sean Dyche previously. I think the 𝗵𝗵𝗄𝗏 victory in the Europa League is, I think, taken as a separate entity, with Postecoglou and Dyche picking up points for Forest in Europe this season. It just needs to be treated like a different world. But the issue is, as it has been all season, scoring goals. They do not score enough goals for us. That's the reason they're in the relegation battle and just above the bottom three. 25 goals scored this season is an incredibly low number. Only Wolves have scored less than them in the Premier League this season. And that's down to lack of quality going forward in 𝐜𝐵𝗏𝗍𝗍, or Chris Wood's always unavailable, or Luca's not been particularly good since coming in, though he did score at Ellen Road in the loss against Leeds. But that's the issue, scoring goals. If they get one in this game, I think they go on to win. The trouble is, are they going to get one? Where's that one going to come from? Will they take their chance when it comes? Screams draw for me at 3.8. I don't think either team have what it takes to win, but I'm struggling to see either team taking enough risks to leave space in behind to lose. If you do pick a winner, I'd probably just shade for Brighton, because they are a better team than Forest this season, plus Forest have played on the Thursday. But again, Forest have more on the line here, and they will target this as a must-win match from what is left. But I think it'll be very tight for reasons discussed. Not many goal scorers in either team. Under 2.5 goals in the match is 1.8. Then from that point, pick a winner and it'll double your money.
Tough one, this one to call. Indeed, this could go anywhere. Forest can't shoot, and I can't trust Brighton. Konats is telling us a draw from 𝐿𝐴𝐧𝐴. Brighton to win. Some other is telling us total under 2.5 goals. 𝗀𝗏𝗍𝗏 is suggesting. So very important game for Nottingham Forest, and the next one is very important for Tottenham, playing against Fulham, in big trouble now. Tottenham and Igor Tudor 4 points away from the relegation spots, still alive in the Champions League, and perhaps even they could face Galatasaray. I can see them being so lucky to be in the Champions League quarterfinals and struggling in the Premier League. That would be really Tottenhamish. Well, they lost to Arsenal in the debut of Tudor in the Premier League with Tottenham, and Fulham was the opposite. Great win in the Stadium of Light, absolutely safe. They were coming from 3 consecutive defeats. Tom, what to bet on here? Tottenham are slightly better away from home this season, but this is a new Tottenham.
It is, and I mean, can I bet on Tottenham Hotspur? Come on, I just don't think I can. I mean, I can see them winning this. I don't discount it at all, but with my money, I'm not so sure. What surprised me about 𝐜𝐵𝗏𝗍𝗍 is A, that he's got the job. I can't understand the hire at all. But B, he's come in and decided to play his formation in his way. And they're going with his sort of 3-4-2-1 style, what he likes to play. And that's not what Spurs have done previously. When you're in a relegation battle, usually what happens is you bring in an old hand who takes you back to 4-4-2 or 4-3-3, a formation you played since you were a child, do the basics well, and fight your way out of trouble. And instead, he's going with his sort of tactical ideas, which did not work last week. Paulinho in a back three did not work. Archie Gray at wing back did not work. Conor Gallagher sort of playing further forward did not work. He did get a tune out of Kolo Muani, who I think scored 2 legitimate goals last week. Only one was given, which he did at Juve last season. So that's a bright spot for Spurs. Obviously, there's a good manager-player relationship there. But beyond that, no one's playing well. No one's particularly happy. The form is not particularly good. The confidence is really low. The manager is a bizarre choice. And I think they're in real trouble, Spurs. They've got to win a game like this against the Fulham team who... They're going nowhere, okay? They're 37 points, same sort of boat as Everton. yeah, they're kind of in the battle for top 8, I guess, if that ends up being Europe. But the trouble is with Fulham, they're so ridiculously inconsistent. They can win 3 in a row, lose 3 in a row. It's those runs that have really kept them out of any trouble this season. But they have won the last 2 in 2 competitions. So why not back that run to continue? Raul Jimenez has been great this campaign. Another penalty goal for him last season. Defensively, they've been conceding more of late, but still look pretty strong, I would say, as a defensive unit. I wonder whether they go for the more defensive pairing of Sander Berge and not Iwobi. I know Lukic is injured, so maybe someone like Harrison Reed or what have you in central midfield, just to make things a bit more solid in that central midfield position, battle through against Spurs and nick the odd goal. It's going to be a game where I think Fulham might be able to take the shackles off a bit. We haven't seen that a lot this season. It might be the end of Marco Silva's time there, one of his final games in charge at Craven Cottage. I'm sure he'll want to entertain. And a 2.23 for a home win for a team who are currently on one of their upswings with 7 home wins this season. I quite like that. Take the Fulham win at 2.23. Raul Jimenez scored last week. Back him again this week anytime at 2.5. Wouldn't be surprised to see another Sunderland Fulham style scoreline or a Tottenham Newcastle style scoreline. That's both teams to score, then pick your winner. I'd shade for Fulham. That goes for 4, but I think it might be a reasonably tight 2-1. Screams 2-1. I'd go for Fulham. Fulham under 3.5 covers that bet, that W money.
Oof, this is so difficult to predict indeed. 𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐴 going also for Fulham 2-1, so similar bet as you are doing, Tom. 𝐿𝐭𝐤 double chance 𝑋2. This is a must win for Spurs. Fulham have nothing to play for. But you never know with Spurs. I think Tottenham win. Spurs draw. You can see in the comments how difficult is this game to predict. It can go any way. The next one, we have one big favorite, Man United playing at home against Crystal Palace, 1.6 for the Red Devils, 4th in the standings now. 3 points ahead of Chelsea, and Liverpool, ugly win, but still a win against Everton. Benjamin Sesko finally paying off with his goals against West Ham, against Everton. So now it's 5 wins and 1 draw in the Premier League. They are playing against Palace. We know that they are on holidays, Tom, but it was a very important win against Wolves not to be in trouble the rest of the season. In a normal world, this should be a Man United win.
Oh, I think we're in a normal world. I think it'll be a pretty comfortable Manchester United win here. Look, have they been particularly impressive in terms of performance? Probably not, but they're just doing the basics well. I mean, it's funny football, right? Sometimes you just need the guys to come in and do the jobs they know, and maybe it's a case of the bad smell of Ruben Amorim has gone. I think they were all bored of him. They couldn't stand him, didn't want to listen to him. His ideas were terrible. The fans hated him in the end. The media hated him. Amorim was a joke, an utter joke at Man United. One of the worst appointments and worst managerial reigns of any boss in Premier League history. A fraud of a manager who should have been nowhere near this club. And is Michael Carrick the saviour? Like, probably not in the long run. But he's just come in and put people in the right positions and asked them to do their jobs. And the players, happy now Amorim is not there, are delivering. Bruno Fernandes moved to number 10, creates lots of chances. 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐴 and Ahmad on the wings, with 𝗵𝗵𝗏 through the centre, plenty of pace in behind. Maiden and Casemiro complement each other well. Maguire alongside Lisandro Martinez has looked a good pair. Lenny Yoro had to come on in the last game with Martinez potentially injured. Maybe there's a drop-off there. They'll be hoping that Martinez is fit. Plus Lamans as well. Like, is Lamans amazing? No, he's not amazing. But Onana before him was a joke. And Bayandi before him was not good enough. He's a sub-keeper. Like, Onana couldn't catch COVID-19 in 2020. That's how bad he was. Whereas Lamans just comes out, makes a catch, he's fine. So, spent big money. Those big money players are playing in their right positions and they're getting good results. It's a good combination of things and lots of good feeling around the place. Couldn't say that about Crystal Palace. Oliver Glasner is on his knees begging, sack me. Please just sack me. Why haven't you sacked me? He's doing it every press conference. Why he can't just hold on for 3 more months and then leave at the end of his contract, I don't know. But he seems to want out sooner rather than later. And that's reflected in performance. They weren't great against Wolves last week. That was an important victory. Struggled, certainly, as the game went on against Burnley. Weren't great against Brighton, but those wins against Brighton and Wolves, that gets them over the line. That moves them from 29 to 35. That's safety in the Premier League this season, I would suggest. Big rebuild coming for this team. I think there'll be one or two players that will be thinking about their futures, the likes of 𝗔𝗿𝗄𝐿, and we know 𝗀𝗵𝐿𝐼, maybe Chris Richards as well. We'll think about a big move after the World Cup. Second string has not been particularly impressive. The team have not been particularly impressive. I'm not sure what the motivation is here, and I think they'll get beaten by Man United. So United win at 1.62. Struggling to see a goal for Crystal Palace, though Stuart Larsson has come in and done fine. But United win to 0, as they did against Everton, as they did against Tottenham. I can see it happening again here at 2.88. 1-0 is 8, 2-0 is 8. Those are the most likely scorelines. You can combine them with a 3, but the odds aren't as good. I would pick one of those two scorelines. And Benjamin Šeško on goal-scoring form. Any time for him is 2.2.
The Man United fan will not cut his hair this season. Well, still there are 3 more games to win, right? So this one could be a Man United win. Who would have thought that Man United would be an anchor against Palace a few months ago? Well, this is kind of a safe bet, I guess. Man United to beat Crystal Palace. And the last game is the best game. Arsenal-Chelsea, crucial game in the title fight. Crucial win also for Arsenal in the derby, with 𝐬𝐿𝐴 once again smashing Tottenham, as they did also in the reverse fixture or earlier in the season. It was very important after the draw against Wolves in midweek. And let's see, this Chelsea, Tom, at home, they've been so poor. They drop points once again against Burnley. They are about to lose also the Champions League spots. And we saw this game recently in the Cup League, both legs won by Arsenal in the Carabao Cup. Also, you see Arsenal winning here, or Chelsea could improve a little bit and put some pressure on Arsenal? No, Arsenal.
I mean, I'm taking Arsenal, though I guess, look, Chelsea have picked out some big results this season, pulled out some big draws. The performance and result of Man City recently, probably the best of what we've seen so far. But if you look at the body of work under 𝐿𝗵𝐵𝐶, which is not a great deal, I know, but there are loads of issues here. And I feel like he's had to fix things in every game. Last week was the Fofana sending off. Chelsea against Leeds, they just collapsed at 2-0 up. Against West Ham, they were 2-0 down and had to come from behind in that one to snatch a victory where, they didn't really deserve to win on that day. So it's a funny little mix of results and performances from Chelsea. Going forward, they, of course, can score goals, as we've seen consistently across 2 managers. I think that it's handy in a way that that he's seen Liam Delap for a couple of weeks, because Liam Delap's not good enough to play for Chelsea. João Pedro is the striker. That gives them a nice balance of Palmer, Enzo and Neto behind the forward. I think Reece James needs to get back in midfield alongside 𝗀𝐻𝐺 Caicedo, because at right back he's been struggling. But the big issue for Chelsea, the centre-halves, has been all season, continues to be so. They do not have a top-quality, top 5 centre-half. Fofana keeps making mistakes, got himself sent off last week. Chalobah's a good squad player, but isn't a top defender in my view. Achimpong and Hato and several others, Tosin, they're fine. Not any of them will get a game for Arsenal, get a game for Man City, get a game for even Man United, frankly, with Maguire and Martinez. And that's the problem with Chelsea, the quality of a player at centre-half. If they invest in that during the summer, we could be having a different conversation. In terms of Arsenal, it was a huge win, not just in terms of the performance against Tottenham, though I do think that was fantastic, but the way they won it with aplomb, the return of 𝗵𝗵𝗄𝐻 having been a non-event all season, I think was a positive thing for them. Someone's got to start stepping up from an offensive perspective. Maybe it's him, or maybe it's 𝗵𝗐 𝐿𝐺𝐿 too. Look, I would still say he's been a flop this season so far, 𝗵𝗐 𝐿𝐺𝐿, because he hasn't contributed a great deal across the campaign, but it's 10 goals now in the Premier League for him. We backed him last week to score any time, and that came in. And it's certainly something I'd consider for this week as well, because he is now just ticking up the numbers. He might finish as a Premier League champion with around 15, 16 goals. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. On the eyeball test, if you live through it, you wouldn't say he contributed a great deal. But the data will give him plenty of confidence going into next season, where he'll hope to be champion. So it's a derby. It's going to be tough. It's going to be taut. It's going to be ugly. I certainly wouldn't discount a red card in this match, with Chelsea having 9, including former boss Enzo Maresca this season. I've not got the odds on that, but you'll be able to find it, I'm sure, on Oddspedia somewhere. So look for the red card in this match. In terms of winners, look for Arsenal. I think they're the favourites. You have to bet on Arsenal to win as the league leaders. Win to 0. has come in plenty of times this season for us. And so I'll take it again. But I certainly think it'll be under. I certainly think it'll be tight. Arsenal to win by exactly 1 goal is 3.5. I really like that.
Let's see if we can see, for instance, a draw, like many people are suggesting here. Konats, KG draw, 𝐿𝐭𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐿 also, draw likely. Another one here also, 𝐿𝐭𝐴𝐧𝐴 1-1 this game. Well, if we have a draw, it would be much more interesting for the title race, but Chelsea needs to raise the bar. And very recently, we saw this game in the Carabao Cup with Arsenal winning both legs. Let's check out our smart bet tool and see what is the suggestion for this best game on Sunday. Corners, and then we have double chance 𝑋2 and goals over 2.5. Well, I prefer the under, I think. But there you go. Well, Tom, this is it for our Premier League. We have midweek games the following week, so stay tuned. On Tuesday, we will meet again here to talk about the Premier League. In the meantime, check out our tipster competitions. Of course, we have a Premier League 1 where you can participate and test your knowledge about the Premier League. Lithuania, a guy from Lithuania is winning now. Lithuania, Bulgaria, and Croatia is Europe leading in our Premier League competition. And also check out rivals. All right, Tom, let's go with your safe bet.
Safe bet this week is the team in for Manchester United to win against beleaguered Crystal Palace at home. A pretty healthy looking 1.62.
I told you it was kind of a safe bet, indeed. And your 𝐿𝐴𝐴?
Treble this week after my disappointing Champions League sixer.
This six-fold.
Didn't work out well. It was wild. I went wild. I thought I'd go wild. It didn't come in.
With the 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐴 already was over.
I know. Literally over the first night. There you go. What can I do? But I feel more confident about this. This is more realistic. A treble this weekend of big favourites. Villa to win at bottom of the table, 𝐻𝑜lverhampton Wanderers. Man United are my safe bet this weekend to beat Crystal Palace. And I like Newcastle to beat an Everton team who can't score goals. That treble comes in at 5.18.
There you go. Thank you, Tom. Thanks, everyone, for watching. See you on Tuesday. Bye-bye.